with Holy Spirit, with God, with each other. Allow the blessed silence to comfort you, to soothe you. Feel the tranquility. Allow yourself to release any concerns, any worries, any of the busyness with schedules and agendas and to-do lists. Just allow those things to just fade away. And just be still and present in this moment, in this space, this infinitely vast space that is within you. Be still and know that you are God. Embrace the silence. Embrace the peace. Embrace the tranquility and stillness and oneness that lives in you. Let us remain here for a few moments longer. Let us bask in the glorious silence and stillness of our divinity. Now gently allow yourself to gradually return to where you are seated and positioned in time and space. Yet allow that wonderful, blessed silence to remain. And so we are open to the wisdom of God's teacher. We willingly relinquish all of our assumptions and everything we think we know in the limited understanding of intellectual mind, while opening ourselves up to the infinite and limitless wisdom of spiritual mind. God mind, the mind of Holy Spirit, where we exist, where we are one, where there is only one. And so as we feel this peace, this silence, this tranquility at the depths of our being, let us begin with our opening prayer. I am here only to be truly helpful.
I am here only to be truly helpful.
I am here to represent him who sent me.
I am here to represent him who sent me.
I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do.
I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do.
For he who sent me will direct me.
For he who sent me will direct me.
I am content to be wherever he wishes.
I am content to be wherever he wishes.
Knowing he goes there with me.
Knowing he goes there with me.
I will be healed.
I will be healed.
As I let him teach me to heal.
As I let him teach me to heal.
And so it is.
And so it is.
Amen.
Amen.
All right.
That was pretty powerful. Thank you very much.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you, Sandy. Yeah, I can do a little prayer, a little meditation and stuff like that. You know, I like to just relax and let my mom do it, or anybody else that wants to conduct a meditation, by all means, please do so. You know, you have my blessing, trust me. You know, but where are we today? We are doing the inheritance of God's Son. That is where we are starting off today. So starting off on paragraph 1.
What is the page?
That was the page.
200.
200. So Claudia, I believe Bill was the first one on, was he not? Claudia? Can you hear me? No? Okay. Bill, would you mind starting us off, please?
Sure. The inheritance of God's Son. Never forget that the sonship is your salvation, for the sonship is yourself. As God's creation, it is yours, and belonging to you, it is his. Yourself does not need salvation, but your mind needs to learn what salvation is. You are not saved from anything, but you are saved for glory. Glory is your inheritance, given you by your Creator that you might extend it. Yet if you hate part of yourself, all your understanding is lost, because you are looking on what God created as yourself without love. And since what he created is part of him, you are denying him his place in his own altar.
So Bill, what do you think about that, man?
There's quite a bit there. I love this part that says yourself does not need salvation, but your mind needs to learn what salvation is. So it's drawn that there's our mind and our self. It's funny, we are, it says you are not saved from anything. And other parts of the course, it says this is a journey without distance to a goal that's never changed. And it's only from the perspective of this, from the mind that believes that there's a spiritual journey that somewhere in the future I'm going to have salvation or happiness, or I'm going to become united with God after some journey. And the course is, I think that's what the course means right here. It says yourself doesn't need salvation. You are yourself. This isn't something you're going to become. someday. But our mind needs to learn what it is. We have this thought, these thoughts, this mind, this thought system that we've identified with as ourself mistakenly.
Mm-hmm.
It never changed reality. Nothing can change reality, but in the mind that believes it so, it becomes a provisional. It's an illusion, but it seems to be real to us, you know. And you know, having been through this enough, you know, I know the whole course is about just healing the mind that thinks it's a mind and body. Because who we really are doesn't need anything, as it just said. And it says, you know, glory is your inheritance. You could change the word glory to salvation or wholeness, or you don't work for an inheritance. It's yours just by the sake of who you are, or what you are, you know. And you know, it goes and says, but if you hate part of yourself, all your understanding is lost. If I seemingly hate you or him or her or anything, I've lost understanding of that there's nothing but God. And that it says, you know, and since what he created is part of him, that's everything. We're not going to find God someday. We're so close. That's why we don't see it most of the time. We're closer than close. It is our very self, our very essence, you know. And I think that the only one that could believe that there's a journey to get somewhere is, I think, that part of mind, or something that the course might call the ego. That it's this belief that I'm something else and I need to attain. Mm-hmm. So we take on a journey, and the course lets us do that. It's very gentle in its awakening process. It leads us along very gently in a very gentle awakening process. You know, I had a course teacher tell me one time, you know, if it's like if you see a child laying in bed having a nightmare and they're switching around and jerking, you could tell they're asleep and they're having a nightmare. You don't go up to the child and just shake them and say, hey, wake up, wake up. You know, the course comes into the dream, into the nightmare of the child. It starts talking to you from there to gently awaken you so it doesn't induce more fear. So it knows that's our big block anyway. So that's all. Thank you.
No problem. And you know, very, very, very well put. Does anybody else have anything to add? Anything that speaks out to you? Any personal interpretations that come from this paragraph? Nobody? Are we trying to absorb it a little bit more? Or?
I think Bill said it all.
Bill definitely hit that one home. He definitely hit that one home. So
yeah, I can ask a question maybe with regards to number 6. Yet if you hate part of yourself, all your understanding is lost. And I just cannot understand how one can hate part of their self, which is like the real self. Especially if I'm not aware of myself, how can I be hating it?
Well, that's a good question, Zeba. There's this has a number of meanings. Number one, it's, there's only one self, number one. So even, hating, your brother or your sister, or hating something, and I don't like to use hate, so let's just say, judgment, putting negative judgment on someone, as far as a brother or a sister, putting a negative judgment on an aspect of yourself. Those things are one and the same. There's no difference whether you put a negative connotation or value on a person, on an individual person, or whether you put a negative value or connotation on an aspect of your personality. It's all the same. It's all relative. There's no difference. And so, it's saying that, if you hate part of yourself, all of your understanding is lost, because you are looking on what God created as yourself, without love. So whether that's your brother or sister, whether that's just any part of you, you could talk about areas for improvement and things like that. Or if you just want to just talk about things within you, however it is that you are today, if there's any part of you that you are not happy about, then that's exactly what the course is talking about. You're looking at an aspect of yourself that God created without love. So if everybody here in this group just loves every part of themselves and will change nothing, and just embraces every part of themselves and has this immense love for themselves, then this section is not talking to you. But if there's some of us that feel that there is some part of us that is less than, and I know I've talked about this many times, as well as if you feel like there's something less than with somebody who you cross on the street or read about in the news or anything like that, it's all relative. It's all the same. It's all relative. We only have this idea that people are not us, this idea that people are separate from us. We only have this, it's only an idea. Course in Miracles refers to it as a tiny mad idea. That's what it calls it. It's an idea that we have, that somehow this person who I'm talking about isn't me. Course in Miracles is saying, hey, this is you, because God only recognizes one son. And even when it says sonship, many times in the Course, it says God only recognizes one son. So anybody you talk about or feel that they're not living up to this, your way of living or, whatever, you're just talking about yourself. And that's and this part is actually talking. And we all do that every once in a while. We do. It's only after a while that we begin to catch ourselves and realize that we're talking about ourselves. That takes a while. That takes a while. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, Zeba. I hope it did.
Well, yeah, it was very helpful, but what confuses me here is the self that is written with a capital S.
Mm-hmm.
And so otherwise I would have thought it's talking about the ego, and whatever attributes that the ego has that we may not like, or we can judge. But this capital S,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
what it's telling me is that Jesus is talking about my real self, God
Absolutely.
created self.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This is your real self. And so, even if you want to talk about the ego and things like that, if you want to talk about your ego, that's still part of you anyway. So, the thing is, just don't judge it. Just don't judge it. That's just the bottom line. Just don't judge it. Just choose again, but don't judge it. Give yourself a pass. Show love to yourself. Give yourself a pass. If you do something, ego, okay, well, laugh about it, laugh it off, and don't judge it. Don't give yourself a hard time. Don't experience anxiety over it, things like that. And just give yourself a pass and be more loving with yourself, and you will see a healing from the inside out.
I'm reading here. This is kind of connected. It says, you never hate your brother for his sins or his wrongdoings, but only for your own. Whatever form his sins or his wrongdoings appear to take, it but obscures the fact that you believe them to be yours and therefore meriting a just attack.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm so glad that you brought that up, William. I am so glad that you brought that up. You know, that actually happened to me during a meditation session, a very extended meditation session, William. And there were images of people, and they were kind of passing by like clouds. And I'm like, why are you here in my meditation? You know, what are you doing here? Why are you here? You know? And so then eventually I began to see why they were here. I began, you know, I was looking at them as a certain way, like, you know, in some area of fault or whatever. And then I began to see what they were demonstrating for me, you know, and I was just basically just projecting it on them, you know, and then I was like, oh my God, you know, in this meditation, I was like, oh my God, this is me. This is me. It just seemed like it was them, but this was me. And after I did that, they kind of vanished in my mind. They vanished. And then next thing you know, somebody else came. You know, another cloud came. And I'm like, what are you doing here? You know, get out of here. Why are you here? You know, and so next thing you know, I started going into what it was I thought about them. And sure enough, I'm like, oh my God. So you're absolutely correct.
That's a blessing for you, to realize for all of us.
Yeah. So
You know, John, I'm sorry, John Mundy, he probably heard of. He's a longtime course teacher. Says that, you know, we go to heaven all holding hands, and he says in one hand we're pulling along somebody we're helping, but the person that's pulling us along is the people that get under your skin the most.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Grievances for it, because they're the ones that are helping you. They're your saviors, as the Course says, because they are helping us when we're there to see what we hate about ourselves, but we can't see it, and we think, because we believe that it's true, so it's too much for us to even consider, so we project it onto others and throw the hate over there, and think that is the reason for our upset. And until you come out of that, like you just said, Stephen, it's just like a never-ending loop. But that's the whole beauty of the Course. The Course calls those people our saviors. That's what they use, you know, our brother is our savior, you know.
Absolutely.
And it's no fun when it's happening.
Absolutely. Elise, was that you that had a question? Who was that had a question?
Yeah, I didn't have a question. I just had a statement.
Okay.
It's when you point a finger at someone else for what they've done or said, are 4 fingers pointing back at you.
Absolutely.
You only notice that in others that is in you and needs to be healed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Elise. Absolutely.
So you spot it, you got it. That's what Michael Gott says. You spot it, you got it.
Exactly. You know what I like? I like takes one to know one. Takes one to know one. Absolutely. So Claudia, who's next for reading? Who came on next? I can't hear you. You're muted.
Sorry. Alice, I think it was you.
It was Elise? Okay, Elise, and I believe Debbie was also. Elise and Debbie, yeah. Okay, Elise, do you feel like reading?
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Okay. Could you try to make God homeless and know that you are at home? Can the Son deny the Father without believing that the Father has denied him? God's laws hold only for your protection, and they never hold in vain.
Hmm.
What you experience when you deny your Father is still for your protection. For the power of your will cannot be lessened without the intervention of God against it. And any limitation on your power is not the will of God.
Hmm.
Therefore, look only to the power that God gave to save you, remembering that it is yours because it is His, and join with your brothers in His peace.
Mm, mm, So at least what do you think about that? Take your time. What you think?
You know, this is the only paragraph in the lesson I did not highlight anything in. Okay. So, if you believe in God's laws, all of them, that's your protection. In Unity, we have a part of our service at the end talks about the power of God protects me, you know,
Mhm.
and that's what that is. And if you believe that, then you believe He is always present in all situations.
Mhm.
And what you experience in number 4, what you experience when you deny your Father is still for your protection.
Mhm.
For the power of your will cannot be lessened without the intervention of God against it. And any limitation on your power is not the will of God, which is to say that when you call on God, when you turn in any situation and turn on God, when you're willing to be willing to be willing to be willing to accept that God's protection is present, that God's laws are in order and being enforced in the moment, then you have peace.
You have peace. All right.
You-
Hey, I like it. I like it. I like that interpretation.
I'm
I
done.
like that interpretation. All right. Going out to the group. What do y'all think? Elise gave an excellent interpretation. There's still some meat on here. What do y'all think?
I have another question here.
Sure.
Number 4 says what you experience when you deny your Father. And I'm not sure, I didn't understand if Alice said anything with regards to this or not. I tried to listen, but didn't really understand if she answered my question. But my question is, when we experience, there should be something we experience when we deny God's will, or deny God.
Mhm.
And seems like something will happen to us, which is still for our protection. Do you have any idea what he's referring to here?
Absolutely. So to deny the Father is to experience fear.
Uh-huh.
You know, with God, there is nothing to fear. God is love, and love cancels out all fear. And to accept the Father is to accept love. You're not going to experience fear. But to deny the Father is to create, is to move into the worlds of illusions. Even if you're in a frightened place, because it happens to all of us. We all experience frightening type things, or things that appear, and I'm really putting emphasis on that word appear, frightening. Okay. But even with, even in those moments, just to affirm that which is true, which is true, which is consciously accepting the God that is within you, which is the same as accepting the Father. The Father is you. It's just, it's not an outside God, that you have to accept or deny, and then you're going to experience different things. No, it's an inside God that's part of you. So to deny that divine part of yourself is to experience fear. Because with that divine part of yourself and the knowing or knowledge that comes from the fact that with God, there is nothing that can harm you. Elise just hit the nail on the head when she was talking about protection. Knowing that with God, you're always protected. But if you don't know that, then that's like denying the Father, and you don't feel protected, and therefore you become fearful.
Mm-hmm. I personally have noticed that whenever I'm denying my Father, which happens whenever I believe or show belief in the world, anything idols of the world, I do feel unhappy, and I feel sad, and I don't know, some kind of hurt, or it's hard to explain, but it's a negative feeling. Maybe
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head right there, Ziba. I mean, when I say fear, I mean it's the feeling that's an experience not of love. So it doesn't mean that you're necessarily, it's like the same type of fear that we associate with fear, like something's going to get you, but at the same time, when you are feeling anger towards someone, that's a form of fear. When you're feeling upset with someone, that's a form of fear, so, but you hit the nail on the head, Ziba, the nail on the head. You feel like this, like I've talked about someone, like what was this person thinking? And I did not feel good. I did not feel good inside. I could feel this feeling of sadness inside. So trying to elevate myself over someone, trying to be, superior to someone. That is a very fleeting feeling. It feels good for a brief second, and then it's followed by sadness. It's not followed by joy, it's followed by sadness. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anybody else have anything they want to add to that? Claudia, looks like you want to say something, but there's nothing stopping you from talking, though. Why are you waving your hand?
I'm just following the protocol.
Oh, okay.
Well, so I was thinking about, all what you are saying, and what the course says, that God offers us like salvation and things like that. But actually, when we are in God, we don't need any protection or salvation or something like that. It's in it because we are in that divine space. Mm-hmm. So every time that we are talking about God giving us peace or protection, so we are in the human place. So every time when we are like thinking that we need to ask or accept or whatever, because we are more in the human piece, so in the material world.
Absolutely, and that's from an advanced metaphysic vantage point. You're absolutely correct. When you're in the illusion, though, you have to think in terms of protection and stuff like that. You're absolutely correct. When you're in the illusion, protection and all that stuff is really important at that point. But yes, if you're not in that illusion, if you're just basically the observer or something like that, you can speak in those terms. And Claudia, I can definitely hear Paul Hasselbeck in your conversation right now, because Claudia is taking one of Paul Hasselbeck's classes, metaphysics class. You're absolutely correct, though, Claudia. Absolutely.
God bless Hasselbeck. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I love Hasselbeck.
I just got out of 12 Powers last week. That was my brain on the second day just went like, okay. Yeah. I have a comment on this paragraph.
Yeah.
What I like about it, the message I get from it is you're always going to win. You're always going to win because God's will, where does it say? What you experience, you deny. Your Father is still for your protection. God's laws hold only for your protection. No matter what you do, even when you get out of that space, that divine will is still there. So you basically might as well just step fully into it. Look only to the power that God gave to save you. Remember that it is yours. It is His. You can't lose. You're going to, even if you, as the paragraph before says, even if your mind is not all there, you're still going to win. But the winning is even bigger if you just fully step into it. That's just what I got from that paragraph.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yes, absolutely. Beautiful, Debbie. You know?
So I wanted to make a comment about
Yes.
sentence number 4. What you experience when you deny your Father is still for your protection. And the way I see that is even if you are separate, and if you believe that something is happening to you that's negative, it's still for your learning, for your reminder to come back to God.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if we have those bad feelings, and if we wake up, and even if we just want to feel better, then that was for our protection. That came to us, just like the people that everybody's been talking about, that we talk about or we don't like or whatever. They are in our lives for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Show us something.
Mm-hmm.
And we can wake up, or we can, go down the yellow brick road looking for the Wizard of Oz to save us. We can do anything, but it's all for our protection. It's all for our learning. It's all for all things work together for good.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sandy. It's all for our greater good. Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yes.
All right. Anybody else? I wonder what kind of comments I'm going to be getting from people on Facebook and stuff like that now. You guys are incredible. You guys are just, man, you guys are just on it. I'm telling you.
I was going to chime in real quick on that thing, because I thought that was so fascinating also, like everyone said, like what you experience when you deny your Father is still for your protection.
Mm-hmm.
And, that doesn't, on first reading, it doesn't make sense topically, just quickly. But the way I see it in light of what it says in the next couple sentences after that is, it's still for our protection because the power of my will cannot be lessened, except if God did it, without intervention. And any limitation on my power, your power, is not God's will. When I choose to see anything but love, the Course says you're in heaven or hell. There's no middle ground, and I'm going to experience very unhappy state. But I did that with my power. God said, it's still my power. Whatever you want to use it for, you go ahead. It's still for my protection, because it goes on, it says, therefore, look only to the power that God gave you to save you.
Mm-hmm.
And I added the other you in there, but use that power to choose peace.
Mm-hmm.
If we find ourselves in hell, and the Course uses that word to describe a very miserable state.
Right.
We can say, hey, I did this, and I could stop doing it. Nothing in the world made me feel this way. Nothing out there made me feel so bad. And I'm using the power I'm using my power to get me there. Nobody else did it. And when I get that, like it says, therefore, look only to the power that God gave you to save you.
Yeah. Your real self can't be in pain, as it says there. It's only the ego part of you that you jump into that experiences the pain. There's a part in here somewhere. I'd have to find it. But yeah, it's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, the ego basically creates the dissonance between what we actually are and what we think we are. But even the ego still serves a purpose for God. So nothing is beyond God anyway. So not even the ego. So even the ego is just basically a testing agent that continues to test us where we can rise above it and more into our divinity. So that's all the ego can ever do. The ego can never act outside of God or somehow, overpower, our divinity. So the bottom line is all it can do is just test us. We can feel an experience of fear, but that experience of fear is just going to move us into a lesson, which will then move us out of that fear and into love. So, it's just a more colorful path. That's all. It's just a more colorful path. That's all it is.
Can I share something to what you're speaking?
Mm-hmm.
It's so specific what you said about the ego as a testing agent, because I was in another Course in Miracles meeting, and I love, you guys are my favorite. I'm just gonna tell y'all that right now. And they're my favorites too, but I don't want you to make you feel bad. I've been cheating on y'all, but I was in another meeting, and in that meeting, my ego decided to speak to me because I have been so persistent, so dedicated in growing and learning and expanding that it showed up in the meeting and it started to do this really sinister thing to me. And I'm sitting and I'm just kind of listening to it as the meeting is going on. And I came to the realization that before I was growing spiritually, my ego was huge. And my ego my ego shows up as a voice that tries to pull me apart, make me feel inadequate, make me feel unworthy. That's how she shows up. But because my spirit has expanded, that has gotten quieter. So now that it's quieter, whenever I notice I am expanding, I'm growing into another space, she shows up and she is super duper sinister, almost scary and chilling to the bone. And I will sit there and I will listen to her try and tear me down. I will listen to that voice and I'll just say, that is a lie. That is a lie. Thank you. I am busy now. And it'll quiet down because now it's the smaller voice. The spirit,
get behind me.
Yes. The spirit is the bigger voice. And that's what's trying to get bigger. But the ego is always going to be there, I think, to make us realize where we are on our, personally for me at least, on my spiritual growth. But she is really, really mean. She's scary. She's very dark.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I could share, something that was just like what you're talking about, but I'm not. Looks like Claudia has something that she wants to say. You know? Okay. All right. Just making sure. Just making sure.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well,
I don't know.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Who wants the floor?
Yeah, who wants the floor?
I'll go real quick. We're talking about that. It says in the Course that the ego's ranges from suspicious to vicious. The more because it knows, really, in all truth, there's nothing but God. The ego is an idea that the false thought system even made up, and it gave itself a name. But the closer we get to that paradigm shift, when we start to wake up, it gets more vicious, like Deb said, and Emily Cady, who you're probably all familiar with, being Unity students, used a word called chemicalization.
Yeah.
To describe that, as we make these these big, because it really, it uproots everything we've ever thought about reality.
Mm-hmm.
And the old paradigm really gets shaky. Fear comes up, and that energy of fear starts sounding like voices and ideas fighting against us, you know. And I went through it this past night. I kind of embrace that now because I know, hey, I'm onto something here. the old ideas don't like it when they know their days are numbered, you know.
Exactly.
And I think that's exactly what's happening in our world. The collective ego has invented this illusion of disease and political divide. And you'll notice it's getting noisier and noisier and noisier. And that indicates to me that more of us are getting closer to God. And the ego does not like that. So it makes more noise and more noise. And the thing is that it's a collective, I believe it's a collective invention. COVID, I try not to say that man's name. Try not to say his name. But it's so noisy and so bizarre and so, to some, maybe me, horrific. But just look at the history of all of this, because we had MERS and SARS and probably the bubonic plague even, and it just keeps on until until for me the 2x4 knocks me against my head and says, "Okay, are you ready to wake up yet?" And if you're not, okay, well, just keep listening to the noise. That's how I see what's going on now. That doesn't mean I'm not afraid. It doesn't mean I'm not sequestered in my house. It doesn't mean that I don't hear and react to things that are going on. But when I'm centered, I can see that it's the ego just working everybody's nerves.
Yeah, it's interesting. I found what is the ego? It's on page 467. It says the ego is idolatry, the sign of limited and separated self, born in a body, doomed to suffer and to end its life in death. You know, the COVID-19, born in a body. It is a will that sees the will of God as enemy and takes a form in which it is denied. In the Son of God, it says, is egoless. What can the Son of God know of madness and the death of God when he abides in him?
Okay. All right. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and take a break because it's about that time. And I guess we don't, this is pretty much finished up with this paragraph. So you take a restroom break or water break or snack break or whatever kind of break you want to take. And we will be back in 8 minutes.
I think it's time to come back.
Yep, I am back.
I want to know where Moj is with all that sunshine. Where are you?
He's in California.
I am in California, Northern California.
Okay.
Yes.
I didn't
So
realize.
we're couple hours behind you.
Yeah. Looks wonderful. Sitting
It is.
outside in the sun. Yeah.
Yes, I just moved because it was getting cold there in the shade. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
California's the most populous state. You said 40 million people living there.
Okay, so where did we leave off? So
The
we
number,
we finished number 3.
no, number 2, we finished, no?
Oh, it's number 2, huh?
Yeah, we are gonna go to number 3, and I think it's Debbie's time to read.
Yep, it is Debbie's time to read. So
Okay.
Debbie, take us away.
All right. Your peace lies in its limitlessness. Limit the peace you share, and yourself must be unknown to you. Every altar to God is part of you because the light He created is one with Him. Would you cut off a brother from the light that is yours? You would not do so if you realize that you can darken only your own mind. As you bring him back, so will you return. That is the law of God for the protection of the wholeness of His Son.
So Debbie?
Yes, sir.
What is your interpretation of that?
Well, the part that sticks out to me is 4 and 5. Need blue bigger light. Would you cut off your brother from the light that is yours? You would not do so if you realize that you can darken your own mind, which is so powerful because that just speaks to oneness. Whatever you're doing to your brother, you're basically doing to yourself. And so you shine that light to your brother, or you help that person shine their light, and your light will brighten. Stay lit. Wow, limit the peace you share, and yourself must be unknown to you. Okay, I just have to sit with that one because that one spoke a lot to me. You don't know who you are when you're not giving peace to your brother. You simply you don't know the length, the breadth, and the depth of how glorious you are. Like that first paragraph talks about that your inheritance is glory. You are glorious. And anytime you take that glory away from your brother, you're diminishing yourself. So that's how that affected me.
I agree. I'm sure we can all think of people who we thought in a manner that was less than favorable, and then reading this, it was like, whoa, I darkened part of my own mind? Really? Okay, all right. So it's like, man, you really got to be mindful of your thoughts. Be mindful of your thoughts, because however it is that you perceive your brother, it's like darkening a part of your own mind. That's really all you're doing, and that is so illuminating. Because I think about people that I got upset with this week, like my sister. I got upset with her. And so this kind of speaks to me, as far as it's like, okay, I guess I got to reevaluate that, so, yep. So.
And I like, here it says, like the next not the next paragraph, but the next number 3, the every altar to God is part of you. because the light he created is one with him. So there is nothing wrong to see the light in somebody else, to see love and to see the God there. Right?
Absolutely. Thank you, Claudia.
It's also that expression that says if you hold a candle for somebody else, you also illuminate your own path. So it reminded me of that. So if you are doing, if you're giving good to somebody else, you're also giving that good to yourself. And if you're holding the good or the peace and the love from somebody else, you also, so it works both ways.
Absolutely. Thank you, Moj. Anybody else?
I have a quick comment. As quick as I know, anyway. I love that first sentence where it says, "Your peace lies in its limitlessness." And I like to stop. I'm like, what does it mean by its limitlessness? Got to go back a little bit. It's talking about our power being limitless, and our peace lies in that. And whether I live in peace or anguish within my power, that's the freedom of this teaching. I mean, how many, I don't know about anybody else, but how much of our lives do we spend being very upset? And lesson number 5 says, I am never upset for the reason I think. All of my life I've spent saying, I am mad because that, or I am afraid because that, or I am mad. You made me mad. When you even say that sentence in slow motion, it sounds ridiculous that you made me mad. Or whatever, you name it, happy, sad, afraid. The Course has given us the free, and I don't want to give the spoiler, but the next paragraph starts with that very core thing in italics, and it says, we can live in heaven or hell. The Course uses those words, in perfect peace, the peace of God, or what we're used to the rest of our lives. It comes and goes, and this and that. And we don't realize our peace lies in that limitless power we have to choose, And when we've made a mistake, to choose again, just like that. I don't know. It's just it's a beautiful realization. I'll let you all know if I ever actually get to practice any of this stuff and do it. It's Thanks.
Anybody else?
I wanted to comment on 3, 4, and 5. I'm reminded of this talks about the light that you would you cut off your brother from the light that is yours. And I'm reminded of a teaching that Mary Morrissey does in Prosperity. And she explained the concept in the Bible, lamp unto my feet. And I may misinterpret it, so you Bible scholars help me out. But the way I see that and the way she explained it is that in ancient and in Israel, when people moved from place to place, they moved at night because they were afraid. The Israelites were afraid, so they moved at night. And Israel's a very rocky place. And so they had to illumine their feet so that they wouldn't trip. And your light helped the person behind you to follow their path. So they had to work together with their lights so that they wouldn't trip and they wouldn't lose their children. And the journey was very slow going because there were all of these rocks. The way I see that is the rocks are the challenges in our lives, and we have to shine God's light on our path, but we also have to shine the light on the path of our brothers and sisters so that we can all get there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Sandy. Appreciate that. Anybody else with an interpretation or a personal revelation or anything? Or question?
William is sharing with us something.
Okay. Can you unmute him? Or can you unmute yourself, William? We can't hear you. I see you are showing us something.
Okay, let me unmute him, but I don't know if we are pressing the button at the same time.
I don't know.
Okay, just let's wait for a little bit. And
Well, let me see if I can.
Oh, there we are. Yeah, this book is an amazing book. Anna, the grandmother of Jesus. This was
Mary's mom.
yeah, this was came through just like the Course in Miracles. It was channeled. The whole book was channeled to a person by the name of Claire Hartsong. And another person that was involved with the Course in Miracles said, you ought to read this, it's great. And what it does, it gets into the Bible times. You're talking about illuminating the power that we have, that people had in Bible times. You know, they could illuminate their feet. All the things that went on. Really, really an amazing book. And then there's another one too that I have about Mary Magdalene. But anyway, you know, you might be interested sometime to grab that at the library or whatever.
Okay.
But
All right.
just thinking about the illuminating of the feet. You know,
Okay.
the power that we have.
All right.
Steve, I'd like to take
Hold on.
notes.
Okay. All right. We're not going on the next one yet. We will. All right. So, anybody else want to or have an interpretation? Somebody else?
I have a question.
Okay.
When we speak of illuminating other people, when we live in a society, and you can do that by how you live, your life becomes an example of what you believe. But living in a society where some voices want one thing that would affect everybody, and they're coming from a position of misinformation, is it your ego that would sit with them and try to present facts, or what's all that about?
I'm glad you asked that question. Does anybody want to answer that question? Okay, so you would not correct anyone. Okay, so we're not in the business of correcting anyone. And there are numerous areas in the Course in Miracles where it says, you know, it doesn't matter if someone is seeing something through the lens of the ego. You know, they don't need to be corrected. Just see the truth for them. As opposed, now if they are willing to, you know, see a different perspective, and they, well, what do you think of it? Well, then, you know, that's something different as far as what do I think of it. If you're asking me what I think of it, then I'll tell you what I think of it. But as far as saying, well, you know, and I'm not sure if I'm understanding you correctly, but as far as the way I kind of interpreted what you were saying, as far as sit down and have a conversation with them, as far as from a standpoint of right-mindedness. But of course, the Miracles basically states, don't correct your brother or sister because it's their truth. And if it's their truth, it doesn't matter if you know what you are wanting to share with them is right-minded thinking. It's still their truth, and they are, you know, the God of their perceptions. They are the sovereign. You know, they're sovereign in their own perceptions, and no one can tell them, you know, what their truth is. Not you, not anybody else. Not an enlightened master, not a guru or a yogi. no one can tell someone what their truth is. So I don't know
Okay,
if that. Go ahead.
I understand what you said, and maybe I need to be more specific. So I will be. With regard to what's happening now, there are some people that saying we can't go back to normal until everybody is vaccinated. And some people view that as, well, okay, let me do some research and come to a decision, and they decide, I don't want to be vaccinated. And then other people are living in fear, and they believe, oh, well, if we're not vaccinated, this is so it becomes very confusing, I suppose you could say.
Okay, I get what you're saying, and thank you for sharing that. And we may actually, there's gonna be people in the future that'll probably face that. I'm glad you're sharing that. That's the same thing that people share as far as when, there's some people that don't believe in taking flu shots, and then there's some people that do believe in taking flu shots. So how can you not believe in taking flu shots? Well, I don't want to take flu shots. I don't know what they have in those things. Well, you should take your flu shots. You know how many people die from the flu? Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I know how many people die from the flu, but you know something? I don't want to take the flu shot. So,
and
that's
I've never had the flu.
Right. I've never had the flu. That's my prerogative. So again, it's a standpoint of people wanting to be right. And, everything has to line up with their idea of what is true. And that's what we don't want to do, because, whatever your truth is what your truth is, as far as having a flu shot, whatever someone else's truth is their truth about this flu shot. So, but I'm sure that we'll have conversations like that. But
it can be very political. Marianne Williamson was caught saying she didn't believe in vaccinations. Because in the Course in Miracles, it says it's ludicrous to think that something injected into your body will protect you. There's some parts in the Course. And so I think she was going along with that, but then politically speaking, what? So she's kind of backed off on that. So yeah, interesting.
Exactly. I'm going to add one more thing about paragraph 3.
Stephen, before you do, can I just comment on what we were just talking about?
Absolutely.
So for me, it's the age-old dilemma between being human and being divine. That age-old, idea of, there were some churches, for example, saying, well, we don't believe in fear. So we're going to open up because God will save us. And, so it's that age old, I study the Course and yet I take my vaccination. And, it's a dilemma. It's the human dilemma that will be with us forever because, it will be with me forever. I don't know that I will ever reach total enlightenment. So I just wanted to
not in your lifetime now, right? I don't know if you believe
this lifetime,
multiple lifetimes.
That's right. I've been here a few times, and it takes me a while. It takes me a few lifetimes to get it.
All right. Well, I do want to say something. I do want to say something about that. And you're absolutely correct, Sandy. Even in the Course in Miracles, it actually says that it's okay to take your medicine. And I don't have it right on the top of my head, but I have no problem finding it where it says, if this is where I'm paraphrasing right now. It's saying if this is where you've invested your belief, then it's okay to take it. Go ahead and take your medicine.
Yeah, because God will work for you, whatever miracle needs to be worked.
It really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Now, when you get to that point where you don't need it, then great. But if right now you need it and that's what you need right now, then great. Either way, it's still a great, And I do want to say that also, I believe Bill alluded to this. When we talk about, I don't know if I'm going to reach that level of enlightenment. We don't know where we're not going to reach that level of enlightenment either. And so, I understand that maybe, so far, this is what the patterns in the past have led us to believe. But at the same time, a holy instant can change everything. A holy instant of clarification or revelation or of things just being clear and a change of perception can completely change everything in a moment's notice. So maybe that could actually happen, Sandy. You could actually experience a complete shift in perception where suddenly it's like, you know something? I don't need this medicine anymore. And if it doesn't happen, that's okay too. But it is possible that it can happen. Anything can happen with God.
Yeah, my grandfather, I interject this, he was very, having me read parts of the Bible and so on and so forth. Anyway, he was a diabetic. He decided, I'm not going to take this anymore. I don't need it. He stopped. He was fine for years after that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it may happen, and and it may not. But at the same time, with God, all things are possible. Is the only point I'm saying. So, and I do have one other thing that I want to discuss, as far as paragraph 3, and then we can move on. But also, it works the other way around too. So if you look at paragraph 3 and you see where it's talking about, hey, looking at your brother this way, and it's darkening your own mind and stuff like that. I want you to understand that it works the other way around as well. As you look upon yourself with love, you impact the world around you. You impact your world. And people will feel that love. As you begin to look upon yourself with complete and total acceptance and love, and even those things that you once thought were flaws, and I know I've said this many times, and I will continue to say it, it's those things that you feel that just don't quite make it and things like that. If you begin to look upon those things as though they are perfect, because you know something, it's who you are. It's who you are. Your brothers and sisters will begin to feel that energetic consciousness coming from you, so it works the other way around as well.
Agreed.
Just wanted to share that.
Can I share something real quick?
Absolutely.
Because Sandy said something about okay, it's not about you, Sandy. I'm going to share my experience with enlightenment, that I am enlightened. And I'm saying that in the context of like the first paragraph talks about we're glorious. So I know I am enlightened. This already, I've already reached it. But this course, what it does in lessons and teachings and growing, helps me to identify the places where I might not recognize that. I look at every single one of you all as enlightened beings. And when I observe something in someone, I know it's me too. And so it's like, oh, here's another revelation of something I can release. So I can experience more of that enlightened me, that sonship. And that's just how I process the whole enlightened thing. But I look at everybody as just amazing beings. And it helps me a lot with my attitude when I observe something off. It's like pull back a little bit and really observe me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
thank you.
Thank you, Debbie, because you are so right. Because and you begin to catch yourself. It's just I've experienced the same thing where I'll begin to think about someone else, and I'm like, something, yeah, because I'll just give you all an example. I had a teacher that made some comments, about my work. Even though I got an A in this class in ministerial school, I didn't necessarily appreciate what this teacher, all the things that they had to say. So at first, my mind began to want to make a story, and then, I just kind of suspended that, and I was like, but what does this mean for you, Stephen? Let's just forget all of that other stuff. What is it that we're supposed to learn here? This is kind of how I talk to myself. Yes, I said we're, you know what I mean? Because I'm kind of talking to my God self and the personality, Stephen Fleming. So I'm like, what is it we're supposed to learn here? Okay. So it's like, that's kind of when, it's like almost like a merging of higher self and lower self, which is personality, where it's like, okay, So Stephen, what are we supposed to learn here? I understand we got this story, and we can say this story can go anywhere. This story can be like Alice in Wonderland. I could just be going deep down the rabbit hole, or I can suspend that. What am I supposed to learn here? So this has happened today. When I just got a grade on my final essay. So yeah, just happened today. So
And you can feel that pushing when you want to look on the outside at what's happening or at the other person, you can feel that pushing that says, no, readjust, no, readjust, right mind. It's like it's always tugging at you to adjust the vision and the observation to yourself. Because I wanted to, make some funky, funny remark about someone, and I could feel it going, Debbie, don't say that. Don't do it. And it's just that, I think that spirit that's always just trying to remind us, this is really what you are, massaging us like, come on, adjust. It's an amazing experience.
It is. Yes, it is.
Yeah, I was told by a teacher that the biggest block we have toward enlightenment is a false conception of what enlightenment is. We all believe it is something that is going to be attained way in the future, maybe 10 lifetimes from now. That's all egoic thought system beliefs. Spirit knows what we are. We can't become ourselves, no matter how many lifetimes you imagine that might take. And the Course says enlightenment is but a recognition, not a change at all. And to recognize, the word means to recognize, and to cognize means to know something. To know. It's just to know what you already know, to remember. Course talks all about remembering God. It's not a change at all that happens to us. So they say enlightenment, two things happen: everything changes and nothing changes. But it was so helpful for me to have a good teacher tell. We have conceptions of it that it is some hard thing, really far away from what I am, and all kinds of changes have to take place before. And think about it. If you really believe that, that's the world and that's the experience you will have about it, right?
Exactly. You will create it. Thank you, Bill. And I believe you said that either last Thursday or the Thursday before. But yeah, you're absolutely correct. You will create it. If you believe it, it becomes your truth, and you will create it. Are we ready to move on to paragraph 4?
I still go back to what Karen said and just say something. Thank you. So I just wanted to say we cannot solve problems at the level that they were created. Now, this issue that she's talking about, the issue of vaccination or whatever, regarding this COVID-19 or anything similar to that, to these things. These are all happening in the illusion world. So if you want to solve a problem that is happening in the illusion, what is a better idea is to go get yourself out of the illusion, like change your perception and start seeing it from the eyes of God. And that's how you can solve this problem.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ziva. So, since we're going to move on to paragraph 4, I'm going to let my father read. He's indicated that he would like to read. So just I'm going to switch so we don't have 2 microphones going. Hold on one second. I'm going to put myself on mute. There you go.
Okay. Only you can deprive yourself of anything. Do not oppose this realization, for it is truly the beginning of the dawn of light. Remember also that the denial of this simple fact takes many forms, and these you must learn to recognize and to oppose steadfastly, without exception. This is a crucial step in the reawakening. The beginning phases of this reversal are often quite painful, for as blame is withdrawn from without, there is a strong tendency to harbor it within. It is difficult at first to realize that this is exactly the same thing, for there is no distinction between within and without.
Okay, so Dad, what does that say to you?
Well, the first word in this paragraph, only you can deprive yourself of anything, makes me think about my early adult life. I was a college dropout at the age of 20 and wasn't willing to, I guess, make the commitment that college entails at that time. So I got into the job market. But a few years later, in my early 30s, I guess I realized that there were certain doors that were never going to be open until I got a college degree. So I made the decision to go back to college, and at the old age of 36, I finally graduated with a degree in engineering.
Wow.
And I'm here to tell you that's probably the smartest thing I ever did in my life.
Okay.
Because it opened doors that were previously closed. And when I look back at other things that have happened to me, whenever things happen in a good way, it's usually because I did something positive. I can't blame anybody else.
Okay.
Right here.
Wow.
And when things didn't go right, it's because I did something that wasn't too smart.
Mm-hmm.
So I can really relate to this paragraph. Only you can deprive yourself of anything.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Dad. Very profound. And going out to the group, what do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of this paragraph?
I think your dad is right, because when we set our mind to something, it will come to us. We draw it to us. We're opening ourselves to us, and it will find a way. Opportunities will present themselves.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Accountability, huge thing here. Accountability. It's all you. It's not the man keeping you down. It's not anybody else. It's just you. So only you can deprive yourself of anything. Any other interpretations of this paragraph? There's a lot of meat on here.
Mm-hmm.
I like where it says the beginning phases of this reversal are often quite painful. That's what we were talking about a little bit before, when you start shifting out of the old way of being into a new way. And because it says, all right, nobody out there made me feel the way I feel now, put me in this position. Then we tend to lay the guilt on ourselves. It says, there's a strong tendency to put blame within me, that to feel guilt. And it, like it says, it's exactly the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, because its foundation is in a belief that there is such a thing as guilt, and that that we do things that cause punishment, that deserve punishment, I should say, rather than simple mistakes that just could be corrected. I know I've experienced that so much, okay, I know this power is all in me and it's not you making me up. Then, okay, what's wrong with me? I'm on this spiritual path. Why do I feel upset? Why do I have anger? And it's all, like the Course says, there is no such thing as guilt. There is no such thing as fear. It's a concept we've made up somewhere that we take to be a matter of reality about life. And we live under that illusionary world created by that belief system that believes in all that, rather than just that God is all, in all, period. Like the Course says, we think there's other powers in the universe or it's in life, and the only other power, the only power there is that our power it's talking about being used against ourselves.
Yeah, I'm on a lesson, Bill. It says, I will not hurt myself again today. Father, your son cannot be hurt. And if we think we suffer, we but fail to know our one identity we share with you. We would return to it today to be made free forever from all our mistakes and to be saved from what we thought we were. It's beautiful because so many days I hurt myself, mentally, Yeah.
Thank you.
Carol, who's a longtime Course teacher, says that, if people ask her, what does A Course in Miracles say? She says, all it says is that when you suffer, you're attacking yourself.
Yeah.
That's the only thing you suffer. And if you stop doing that, you'll.
Yeah. It's so easy. Just stop.
Exactly.
One thing I tell myself every morning is that I am responsible 100% for my thoughts, for my experiences, for what I see, what I feel, and what I hear. And that, for me, that holds so much ownership of what goes on around me. And when 20 some years back, I did some landmark courses and I hated it because it made me responsible. It made me like anything and everything is basically I could shift it around in whatsoever ways, but it's all points to that direction. And also one of the lessons I think sometime back we talked about is the only thing that can hurt us is our thoughts. So it's all kind of like circles back to the same thing, that yes, only you can deprive yourself of anything.
Absolutely. Thank you, Moshe. Thank you. Anybody else?
And we don't have to live in the past. Don't live in the past. That's over.
Yep.
Right.
And one thing I want to say is also the part that is more difficult is the guilt part. Is like, yes, it's like it's my own thoughts. I'm creating my own experiences. I'm responsible for my own feelings, but not to come around and give ourselves guilt about it. So that's the tricky part, to release that and just take that lesson and go forward.
Exactly. What works for me is to give myself a pass. That's what works for me. I give myself a break. I have a critic in me, just like many people have a critic. I have a critic too, and and that critic comes out sometimes. And so it's now I'm becoming more conscious about giving myself a pass. And let myself make it, laughing about it. And not a big deal. What's the big deal? I mean, is it really gonna matter? In a couple of days, is this how big is this? Come on now, how big is this? All right, and because once you get in that illusion, man, it's just like a slippery slope. It's like you're just going down and down the rabbit hole. Stories.
Yeah, my wife can snap me out of it. I mean, she realizes, wait a minute, stop. So another person can kick you out of it too, which is good.
It's good to have a partner that can that can do that. It's good to have like a partner that hey, you're going down that rabbit hole. Come back. come back. That's good. You know, if you
Yeah.
don't, if you're by yourself, you know, again, you can still habitually create positive self-talk, because all the thing we're talking about is self-talk. We're talking about self-talk. Okay, and that self-talk, like Deb was saying, can be vicious. It can be vicious, like Bill was saying. It could be, you know, it ranges from suspiciousness to outright viciousness, like Bill was talking about. And then, of course, you know, that self-talk can be something, you know, because it knows everything about you. So it knows what buttons to push. It knows what to say. You know, it knows how to make you feel, you know, the worst you could possibly feel.
Oh yeah, it's good at that.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, so what works for me is to just give myself a pass and just let it go. You know, something this isn't really that serious. And then that little voice, it gets quiet, like Deb was saying. It gets quiet. It goes away. You know, that voice that was ready to attack, it goes away. You know, it's like the illusion, it just kind of fades. So that's what works for me. Whatever works for you, feel free to share. Remember, there's a lot of people that are viewing this or that are going to view this. So if you want to, you know, share what works for you, share what works for you.
And isn't that said that forgiveness, you forgive 70 times 7?
Oh,
And 7 is the representation of limitless infinity. So it's like infinity times infinity. So it's not just toward others, but mainly toward ourselves too.
Never stop forgiving. Never stop
You
forgiving. Never
know-
stop giving yourself a pass. Thank you,
And
Mose.
you know, there was a great philosopher that said, when you know better, you do better.
Absolutely.
That was Oprah.
she has some great things
I
to say.
frequently cite her as the great philosopher.
Right.
When you know better, you do better. And that's
Yep.
for the other person as well as for yourself.
Exactly.
There's someone said that something to the effect that if you really want to strengthen your ego, just start fighting with it.
Exactly. Start resisting. Yeah, start resisting. And so that's absolutely correct. And that's why the pathway to peace is non-resistance, brothers and sisters. It's non-resistance.
Right.
It's acceptance.
Only the ego would even think of wanting to fight with the ego.
You know, I played soccer, and the soccer coach would always tell us, I played soccer as an adult. So, and I'm saying that because it's even harder to teach adults how to move their bodies and all of that. And he used to say, let the ball fall at your feet. If it's coming toward you, let it fall at your feet, and you have control of it. It's yours. You don't have to go for it. You don't have to fight somebody else for it. It's at your feet. You know, you don't have to resist anybody. You don't have to, and that was the hardest concept, because of course, you know, what we would all say is, but they're coming for it, you know, but it's yours. And, you know, I think that's a kind of a metaphor also for not resisting, not fighting about it, just let it happen.
Absolutely. Thank you. So how we looking? Do we feel like we can go on to one more paragraph? Because
you know what, I want to throw this in here about this. You know, what helps me is in the evening with this. There are certain times a day I notice that this whatever critic can really flare up more. Maybe when I'm more tired, or there's certain things that have sort of set me up in the past that I notice I have to be even more vigilant. Thankfully, my this training is helping me become more aware of it and realize, okay, I have to take some action here when it starts up, like you're talking about, you know, Stephen, where you give yourself a pass, and which is forgiveness, really. I think the lesson I had yesterday, it said, just practice, just try it and see. boom, and it just flips you right out of it. It's like, it's just try it. And so this stuff is really simple if you try it, and it's like, wow, it works. But it takes that willingness, that little willingness, and that real is connecting the dots, and the choice. Like for me in the evening when I have this little saboteur comes in, and maybe I'm tired, for whatever reason my guard gets lower at certain, and so if I'm tired, I notice, okay, I need to just go to bed and help myself relax. And I'm doing a lot more to support that kindness to myself, and really making it like really turning the love on toward myself, because I think I was actually sort of if in a way starving myself for love or something. It was almost like I was doing the opposite, because it was like I was just just needing a lot of nurturing at that time, or and just so singing or music, anything that's light or God oriented, praying, and it flips me right out of it. But I have to choose. It takes me a lot, that choice, that action, that willingness, and so anyway, it's a work in progress. It's always but I'm starting to come more into alignment with it, cooperating more and more. And so that I can be grateful for that. That's a big for me. That's a big thing, because I was working on that for 5 years, analyzing what is wrong with me. Why can't I? What's going on? And so anyway, I'm actually starting to be nice to myself. Like it's like I didn't even realize what I was, it's like I was so used to this, whatever I had been doing, like I could handle, you can just handle whatever kind of mean treatment, whatever, just, ignoring whatever, just not being nice to myself. And not realizing that's not okay. Why would I not be gentle and joyful and happy and let God's love in, and so thank you.
Absolutely. So I don't know if we have time to discuss another paragraph. What do you guys think?
Okay, I'm not sure because I have a lot of questions about number 5.
Yeah.
So-
Okay. So let's start on paragraph 5. Seems like I was muted just now, but let's start on paragraph 5 and go ahead and read that. Claudia, who's next? Claudia.
Hold on.
Okay.
I think it was William.
It was William. Okay, William, you feel like reading? All right.
I can do it.
Okay.
I haven't. If your brothers are part of you and you blame them for your deprivation, you are blaming yourself. And you cannot blame yourself without blaming them. That is why blame must be undone, not seen elsewhere. Lay it to yourself, and you cannot know yourself, for only the ego blames at all. Self-blame is therefore ego identification, and as much an ego defense as blaming others. You cannot enter God's presence if you attack his son. When his son lifts his voice in praise of his creator, he will hear the voice for his father. Yet the creator cannot be praised without his son, for their glory is shared, and they are glorified together. Wow.
So, William, what do you think about that?
Yeah, all these paragraphs kind of come up with the same kind of thing, that I think that that wherever we go together. That all of us are sons of God. We're all brothers, and yet we're all one. So I always think of that analogy of we're like waves in the ocean, and we may come up and look like we're separate, but then we melt right back into the ocean again. That we're all connected. So we blame ourselves, we're blaming our brother. I always think if I can heal myself, I'm going to heal my brother. Yeah, we're all one.
Yep, absolutely. All right, going on to the group. What do you guys think? Elise, you said you had some questions.
Yeah, so my questions go to the latter part of the paragraph.
Okay.
Where it says in number 7, when his son lifts his voice in praise of his creator, he will hear the voice of his father. Okay, so question 1 is, in a sense of oneness, as I understand oneness, God and the Son are one.
Yep, that's right.
They are not different entities. So why would God hear the voice of his son? I don't get that. Or why would the son hear the voice of his father? If they are one, do they not speak as one? Do they not operate as one?
Question. That's an excellent question. I'm glad you actually asked that. And I believe Bill brought that up a couple of Thursdays ago. In the illusion, though, there is separation. There is the Father and the Son and things like that while we're in the illusion. And Course in Miracles is still speaking to us in the illusion,
in
as
the
far as
third dimension.
Yeah, and the illusion of separation and stuff like that. Because in reality, you're absolutely correct. At least there's only one. There's only one of us. But at the same time, of course, in Miracles, in order to reach us in our separate state, I believe Bill talked about it like a college professor. Can a college professor talk about all the things in college with a 2-year-old or a second grader or something like that? No, they have to speak in terms that the second grader can kind of understand. And so this is kind of in terms where the second grader can understand, at least. So it's kind of written that way.
It makes sense.
I don't know if that answered your questions at all, Elise. If it didn't, I apologize. That's looks like you're muted.
No, sorry, no. I'm so sorry. Okay, I don't know how old the book is, and so I guess I'll have to go back and look at when it was written. But it just, that portion really bothered me. In the front piece, it says 2007. So I can go with, that was where the thinking of the writer was in 2007. I'll let the rest of my questions go. Thank y'all.
It's like forgiveness, Elise. Forgiveness, forgiveness is only useful in the illusion. Okay. So for example, forgiveness, as far as, in other words, in absolute, forgiveness is only useful in the relative. So it's not really useful in absolute truth. It has no purpose. It's only useful here. So that's the same thing. Really, no forgiveness is even necessary because nothing really occurred. But at the same time, in the dream, in the illusion, forgiveness is very necessary. So when you're in the dream, it's necessary. And so in the dream, the creator or the son is looking up to the father and things like that. So it's, I'm sorry if I didn't, if I didn't explain it well enough, Elise, I apologize.
No, don't apologize. Just help me, because I'm not, that That doesn't help me right now. I'm not understanding the analogy you just gave.
Hmm.
I understand that forgiveness is only relevant on this plane. I get
Right.
that. Okay.
Right.
I don't understand how God, Son, oneness as one, why would they be speaking to each other?
Because we
I
don't
don't get
perceive,
that. Because
because we
that's on
don't,
another plane. Because that's
because
on
we don't,
another plane to me.
right, I got you. Because we don't perceive ourselves as one, at least we don't. I mean, we have theoretically, yes, we realize that we're one, but we don't perceive ourselves as one. So, as far as perceiving ourselves as one, if we really truly perceived ourselves as one, we wouldn't really have any problems with our brothers or sisters or anything like that. So, but because we don't perceive ourselves really as one, that's we're in the illusion.
But Stephen, in all respect, I understand we don't perceive ourselves as one.
Mm-hmm.
Claudia wants to say
I
something.
Thank you, William.
All
Well,
right.
another thing that I see here, I mean, maybe very simple for me, it is like when we align, so we have a part that is kind of, we say that is a human part and a divine part. So this communication of these, forgiveness to one each other or things like that, for me means kind of oneness, So yeah, you cannot live without the other one. So basically for me, what it means is that they need to kind of coexist together, these two parts, while we are still in this plane of illusion, because at the end of the day, we are just the same thing. But for me, like when we talk about back and forth, that the God needs, the company of the Son or stuff like that, for me means like basically just kind of accept this union that is always there. So that's my take. I don't know. Debbie wants to talk now.
Okay.
I also think that this is speaking to in the third dimension as humans that we keep forgetting. So we know that intellectually, but internally we keep forgetting, and we need to study the Course in Miracle to be reminded. We need to be going to our church, every week to be reminded.
Yeah, like
So
our minister in our church said, "Oh, I read that Course in Miracles." He said, "I read it," and I thought to myself, "You're not reading it now." I have to keep reading it.
All right, I believe
It's
Debbie
10 o'clock.
has a question.
Deb
has a question. Yeah, Deb.
Just one. Yeah. Okay. So this is what I'm hearing, when his son lifts his voice in praise of his creator, he will hear the voice of his father, because they're the same. Yet the creator cannot be praised without his son, for their glory is shared and they're glorified together. It's like it's one voice.
Yeah.
They're not separate.
No, it's not.
Okay.
I just had a quick comment on that. There's a part in the Course, I used to have all the same questions. It doesn't make sense. And the Course says in one of the lessons that there will come a time when experience will answer those questions. And experience will end all doubting. Something will happen where you'll see that. You'll see.
Yeah, you're not ready to know
like
it.
the Course is making a concession to the mind that believes in separation. It's not. It's making a concession, from the absolute. But it says, by doing the lessons and practicing, experience will come to end all doubting. And that is true.
Absolutely. And Elise, you have my number, Elise. You can call me anytime you just want to talk or whatever you want to talk about the Course in Miracles. You give me a call. Don't worry about it. It's okay.
Elise, one of the reasons that I hope it's okay when I bring real life experiences in, when I talk about things and I kind of, superimpose something that's going on now, is exactly the reason that I think that you're going through now. My head explodes with this stuff. So I have to make it real. I have to relate it to something that's going on with me right now, or has gone on with me, in order to, that's what Bill was talking about, experience. Because otherwise, I remember 20 years I've been studying this stuff off and on. And my head explodes with some of this stuff that it says. And you do have to live with it. And I had a teacher one time that said, do not try to understand this intellectually.
All right. What happened to my timekeeper?
I've been trying to say it's 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock for me.
You know, I'm like, what's going on with my timekeeper here?
I'm trying. But I didn't want to step on toes, you know.
No. Well, listen.
We're all the shy. This is the shy group.
All right. So listen,
Wonderful.
I tell you what, we're gonna go ahead and pray, and we're gonna go ahead and pray out. And who feels like praying us out? Who feels like praying us out?
I'm going to say good night before you guys go into prayer. Thank you so much. I'm going to actually go to another meeting that's going to start with a prayer. So I'll.
Okay.
You catch with a prayer there.
All right, Melissa. Good to see you.
Thank you.
All right. Who would like to pray us out?
What
All
about
right. Who?
I propose Alice.
Alice, you want to pray us out?
I will do it.
All right. Okay. Come on. Let's do it.
As we gently close our eyes and focus on our heart space, let's take a deep breath in and release it slowly. And let everything that is in our conscious mind release. As we come to this moment in communication with our Father, Mother, God, we are so grateful for an opportunity to share, to learn, to challenge what we think we know and what we think we've experienced and what those experiences mean, and to rise up to the next level, because we are all spiraling in our growth of spiritual understanding and development. And for this, we thank you, God. We are so grateful. We thank you for our health, our safety, our food, our incomes, our peace of mind in times that appear to be not good. But we know everything is in divine order. And we all stand in faith and trust in you, and knowing that this too shall pass. And for these many blessings, Spirit, we say, Amen, Amen, and a woman.
Amen and a woman.
You, Alice.
Thank you so much, Elise. That was a beautiful prayer.
Thank you.
And it was this has been a wonderful evening. Thank you so much. It's been so great. And Facebook Live is already on there. It's already, running and everything else. So
Okay, Stephen, we're gonna have a talk, honey.
Okay, yeah, give me a call. It is so much of a pleasure to study A Course in Miracles with each and every one of you. Thank you so much.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Good night, all.
Love you guys.
Good night, everybody.